God's path does not always feel like God's path. It can feel slow, difficult, and uncertain, and still be exactly where He is guiding a person. That is why this video will reveal 7 clear signs that a life is moving under His direction, even when the next turn cannot be seen. This is for anyone who has prayed, tried to do what is right, and still wonders whether one wrong decision changed everything. The signs are not dreams to decode, coincidences to chase, or the simple fact that a door opened or closed. They are practical patterns that appear in a person's choices, priorities, integrity, steadiness under pressure, and the fruit a life begins to produce. Scripture does not promise that every mile will feel easy. It shows a God who instructs and guides. The 7th sign is the strongest because it takes time to see and is difficult to fake. And after it, a 4-question path check will help turn one confusing decision into one responsible step for the next 24 hours. This list is not a formula to predict the future. It is a way to examine the present. We often expect a map showing every obstacle. When it does not arrive, panic sets in. We assume silence means abandonment. But true direction is not knowing next year. It is knowing today. The Book of Psalms offers a different kind of promise. It says, "I will instruct thee, and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye." God does not hand over the entire blueprint. He guides the next step. The first sign that a life is moving under His direction is that the next right step becomes clearer than the whole plan. You do not know the future. You cannot see how the year will end. You do not know if a door will open, if a relationship will be restored, or if a specific financial problem will finally be resolved. But in the middle of that unknown, one immediate responsibility becomes undeniably clear. It might be scheduling the medical appointment you have been avoiding. It might be sitting down to finally organize the week's bills. It might be asking a sibling to share the care of your mother, or sending an honest, respectful text to an adult child without trying to control their response. The future remains completely open, but the present duty is objective. It does not require you to predict how other people will react. It is a step that is small, measurable, and entirely yours to take today. When God guides, the overwhelming need to resolve everything simultaneously begins to fade. You stop trying to unfold the entire map. Imagine holding a thick, folded paper roadmap in your hands. You can feel the creases under your fingers. You unfold just one small square of it. Only one curve is circled. You cannot see the final destination. You can only see the road immediately ahead of you. To find this clarity, use a simple tool called the 3 circles. Take a physical piece of paper and draw 3 circles. In the first, write what you know, the confirmed, undeniable facts of your situation. In the second, write what is yours to do today, one concrete responsibility. In the third, write what is not yours to control, the final result, the reactions of others, and the ultimate timeline. Your focus and your obedience belongs entirely in the second circle. This is the very nature of biblical guidance. The Scripture says, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path." A lamp does not illuminate the horizon. It only throws light on the ground, right where you stand. When the people of Israel were in the wilderness, they received manna sufficient only for the day. They could not store it for the month. They had to walk out and gather what was needed for that morning. Clarity about your present responsibility is not certainty about the outcome. It is simply the obedience required for today. But a next step might be clear while a moral correction is still being avoided. That is why the second sign is far more uncomfortable. The second sign is that your conscience becomes specific, not merely heavy. When we are lost, we often carry a vague, crushing sense of guilt. Vague guilt is a fog. It covers everything and clarifies nothing. It whispers that you are a failure in every direction, that you are ruining your life, and that you are beyond repair. You feel anxious, burdened, and entirely wrong. But true conviction, the kind that comes from God, operates differently. It does not crush you with generalized shame. It points to a specific, actionable truth. It tells you to apologize for a cruel message you sent in anger. It tells you to stop repeating a piece of gossip. It prompts you to admit a hidden financial error, or to fulfill a promise you conveniently forgot. It shows you exactly where a boundary needs to be set, but without revenge or malice. Vague guilt tells you that you are a bad person and nothing can be fixed. Specific conviction tells you that a particular action was wrong and there is a repair to be made. When God guides, the correction points to a behavior, not to a condemned identity. There is a real person or a real responsibility affected, and most importantly, there is a possible repair. The correction leads you toward truth, rather than driving you into isolation and despair. To test this, use a tool called Name, Person, Repair. Complete these 3 sentences. First, what I did or avoided was. Second, the person or responsibility affected was. Third, the repair I can begin within 24 hours is. This takes the heavy cloud of anxiety and turns it into a concrete act of integrity. The scripture makes this standard very plain. It says, "Therefore to him that knoweth to do good, and doeth it not, to him it is sin." When the tax collector Zacchaeus felt conviction, he did not just sit in vague guilt. He stood up and promised concrete restitution to the people he had wronged. His conviction became an action. However, we must be careful here. Intrusive fear, permanent shame, and paralyzing anxiety should not automatically be called the voice of God. If anxiety is debilitating, you may need pastoral and professional support, not more accusations. But when a specific repair is made, it reveals what a person truly values. And that brings us to the third sign, which examines your priorities, not your feelings. The third sign is that your priorities begin to change before your circumstances do. You might still be in the exact same house, facing the same financial limits, and dealing with the same difficult people. But inside, a quiet shift is happening. What used to matter desperately no longer holds the same weight. Maintaining the appearance of success begins to matter less than living an honest, organized financial life. Pleasing everyone around you begins to matter less than protecting your physical and mental health. Holding a prominent position begins to matter less than being truly present with your family. Winning an argument matters less than reconciliation. Trying to control an adult child loses its grip on you, replaced by a desire to love them while respecting the limits of your own responsibility. Truth begins to matter more than image. Presence matters more than busyness. Responsibility matters more than approval. This change is not just exhaustion. When we are merely tired of our lives, we just want to escape. But a God-given change in priorities survives rest. It continues to make sense even after you sleep, and even after you consult with wise counsel. You can measure this shift with a tool called Calendar, Money, Attention. Your calendar never lies about your priorities. Your bank statements never lie about what you truly value. They are the undeniable ledgers of your affection. Look back at your last 7 days. Where did your time actually go? Where did your money actually go? Where did your mental attention actually go? Do not look at what you say your priorities are. Look at what your calendar and your bank account say they are. Then, choose one small adjustment to make this week, to align those areas with the truth. This is what it means to be formed in a new direction. The scripture says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good, and acceptable, and perfect will of God." When the tax collector Matthew was called, he stopped using his life to accumulate wealth and started using it to follow. His circumstances changed, but his mind changed first. If you want to continue examining where your time, money, and attention are going, the Watchman's Guide provides a structured way to audit these exact areas of your life. It is designed to help you build a life of truth rather than reaction. You can find it waiting for you in the first pinned comment below. The first 3 signs can happen entirely inside your own mind and heart, but the 4th sign puts your direction up against the hard facts of reality, facts you might be trying to bend. The 4th sign is that you can stop forcing what requires you to ignore truth. Sometimes, letting go feels like dying. We hold on to a closed door so tightly that our hands bleed, convinced that if we just push harder, God will honor our stubbornness. We stay in an opportunity that requires us to omit facts or compromise our values. We pour our energy into a relationship that is entirely one-sided, begging for a reciprocity that never comes. We maintain an investment or a project merely because of the money and time already lost, even when the evidence says it is time to reevaluate. We sustain a volunteer position that is actively destroying our health and our family. When God is guiding you, you find the strength to stop forcing the door. You realize that continuing on this path requires you to constantly minimize repeated, painful facts. It requires you to sacrifice basic integrity or neglect your primary responsibilities. You may notice that wise, mature people in your life are all pointing out the exact same risk. And deep down, you know that your insistence is driven by the fear of admitting a change, not by faith. To gain clarity, use the forced path test. Ask yourself 4 questions. Am I distorting any facts to continue this? Am I compromising my integrity or neglecting a clear responsibility? Are wise people warning me about the same danger? Am I persevering out of faith or simply because I am afraid to let go? If you have to lie to yourself to keep walking a path, it is not God's path. The scripture reminds us of our limits. It says, "A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directeth his steps." The Apostle Paul had to adjust his route when his plans to go into Asia were blocked. He did not declare the closed door a total failure. He looked for the next faithful field instead of trying to break the door down. We must be honest here. Not every closed door is a divine message. A lack of preparation, financial limits, the choices of other people, and ordinary timing also close doors. The sign of God's guidance is not the rejection itself. The sign is your willingness to face the facts without panic and without manipulation. But stopping the force of your own will often brings a strange kind of relief. The 5th sign tests whether you can also choose what is right when it costs you comfort. The 5th sign is that the right choice may cost comfort, but it preserves integrity. If a decision is right, why does it hurt? Why is it so uncomfortable? Because doing the right thing in a broken world often comes with a price. Integrity is not a cheap commodity. It is paid for in the currency of human comfort. It is uncomfortable to say no to an adult child who continually asks for help but refuses to take responsibility. It is uncomfortable to ask for forgiveness before you know if the other person will forgive you. It is uncomfortable to tell the truth about a mistake that could cost you your reputation. It is deeply uncomfortable to accept respite care instead of trying to carry the impossible burden of caregiving entirely alone. It is hard to follow a strict budget when buying something would provide instant emotional relief. It is terrifying to leave a manipulative dynamic or to seek medical, legal, or pastoral help instead of hiding a problem behind closed doors. The discomfort does not prove the choice is wrong. What matters is what the cost is protecting. The cost protects truth, safety, responsibility, or mercy. The decision does not depend on the applause of others, and you can explain why the choice is responsible without using "God told me" as a shield to end the conversation. To evaluate this, use the cost and protection tool. Fill in the blanks. This choice costs me, but it protects. If the second answer is merely your own pride, your public image, or your desire for control, the decision needs to be reviewed. True guidance anchors you to what is right. The scripture says, "He hath shewed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God." Esther accepted the terrifying cost of speaking the truth, but she did so to protect her people, not to be a martyr. Pain alone does not validate a choice. Abuse is never a calling. Enduring violence or exploitation is not a sacrifice God demands. Decisions involving health, safety, housing, or severe financial risk often require qualified professional help and a solid safety plan. Do not glorify unnecessary suffering, but when an upright choice is made, it can still be ruined if taken in panic. The 6th sign tests who is holding the steering wheel. The 6th sign is that urgency stops making your decisions for you. On a Friday afternoon in Dyersburg, Tennessee, a 64-year-old caregiver sits in her parked car outside a pharmacy. The engine is turned off. She holds a medication estimate in one hand and her phone in the other. Her mother's health is declining, her savings are thinning, and the pressure is suffocating. 2 different people have given her completely opposite advice. She has prayed, but pressure and guidance sound almost exactly the same. Everything inside her screams that she must solve the entire year's financial crisis right now, in this parking lot, before she turns the key in the ignition. But true guidance creates space between the news and the reaction. You receive a diagnosis, and you write down questions instead of immediately concluding the absolute worst. You receive an unexpected bill, and you verify the numbers before accepting a risky loan. You read a painful message late at night, and you wait until morning to answer. You are offered an opportunity, and you investigate it before saying yes, out of a fear of missing out. You face a crisis with an adult child, and you do not immediately assume every consequence belongs to you. Peace is not the absence of emotion. Peace is the ability to refuse to hand the steering wheel over to panic. You separate facts from fearful predictions. You seek adequate counsel. You avoid making irreversible decisions during an emotional peak. You choose the next necessary step instead of trying to resolve the entire decade. When there is no immediate emergency, use the 24-hour pause. Take a breath and pray a short prayer of surrender. Write down the confirmed facts. Sleep on the issue before making an irreversible choice. Consult someone wise. Then, choose only the next necessary step. The scripture speaks to this stability of mind. It says, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind." Nehemiah heard devastating news, but he prayed a brief prayer and thought clearly before presenting a concrete request to the king. A sound mind can think under pressure. Of course, real emergencies require immediate action, and feeling anxious does not mean you lack faith. The sign is simply that you no longer allow the anxiety to decide for you. But even less impulsive decisions need to be verified. The seventh sign observes what your choices produce over time. The seventh sign is the most reliable because it cannot be faked in a single afternoon. Better fruit appears in ordinary relationships over time. We love the spectacular. We want burning bushes, parted seas, and writing on the wall. We want a sign that requires no patience and leaves no room for doubt. But God's primary method of confirming his direction is entirely ordinary. It is agricultural. It takes time, weather, and seasons. This is not about achieving fame, accumulating money, escaping all problems, or getting exactly what you asked for. It is a quiet, steady pattern of transformation. You find yourself reacting with a little more patience toward your spouse or your child. You keep your promises with greater consistency. You tell fewer lies to protect your own image. You ask for help before you collapse into burnout. You establish necessary boundaries, but without taking pleasure in punishing the other person. You manage your money with more honesty. You feel less need to control how other people react to you. You become a safer, gentler, and more responsible presence for the people around you. Guidance is not just about where you are going. It is about who you are becoming along the way. To measure this, use the 30-day fruit check. Ask yourself, am I more truthful? Am I more patient? Am I more responsible? Am I more compassionate while still refusing to enable abuse? Am I better able to control myself when I feel fear or anger? Would a mature, trustworthy person in my life recognize this growth? This is the ultimate test of any spiritual path. The scripture says, "But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy." The biblical figure Dorcas did not leave behind a grand theory about her purpose. The widows she helped showed the concrete fruit of her life through the garments she made. Fruit requires time. One good day, one intense emotional high, or one favorable external result does not constitute a pattern. This is why this seventh sign is the anchor. It prevents us from turning every coincidence or strong feeling into an oracle. It forces us to put the 7 signs side by side, recognizing that true guidance is a convergence of all these traits over time. We began with a promise. Your path is not random. It takes shape through your next duty, a specific correction, reordered priorities, honest facts, protected integrity, a sound mind, and good fruit. It is not random when it is anchored in truth. It is not random when it bears the weight of responsibility. It is not random when it produces the character of Christ. To turn this from a list into a life, here is the path check. 4 questions to ask yourself right now. First, what is already clear for me to do today? Second, what truth or responsibility have I been avoiding? Third, what am I forcing because I am afraid to let go? Fourth, what fruit has this direction produced in me and around me? Answer those, and then choose a single, actionable step to take in the next 24 hours. If your decision involves safety, health, housing, or finances, let that step be consulting the right professional. My friend, you do not need to unfold the entire map. You do not need to know where the road ends to know how to walk today. The whole road may stay folded tonight. The next faithful turn does not, and that is enough to keep walking with God.